Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Really pleased to have you here. Someone's asked me to do one on management, on being a sergeant, and it's just to give you my tips, my ideas. I was a sergeant for about 23 years or so. Loved most of it, to be honest. It was definitely the rank for me, and I'll explain why. And through this, I'll keep it short and snappy if I can, and explain what the different types are really, and why I chose for the frontline practical type, go-get-'em type sergeant, and also how I actually got into sergeanting when I had absolutely no intention to whatsoever, and then some really key tips that I learned of how to do all those awkwardness. You tend to get thrown into it, given some sergeant's training course that it has its uses, but doesn't tell you the unofficial stuff that can be really helpful. So here it is. This is how you can learn it. Please subscribe. Press that subscribe button. I need to get the figures up, please, and like this video. Do that before you leave, because so many watch this and they don't do that, and I really appreciate it. I will not be hassling you with loads of videos, but please subscribe and like. Thank you. Right, let's get on with it. Okay, so different sorts of sergeants. I was very much the practical, not that academic, but could be when I really wanted to be, but just don't enjoy learning that sort of thing unless I want to learn about the subject. So I got a handful of GCSEs, and I was going to be a PC response for 30 years. And that was fine with me, because I could just get better at my craft. I could go and do different policing in different areas, like seaside resorts, cities, towns, anywhere, right? So that's really the bit that I wanted to do. And you can get, so I always admired the sergeants on armed response, traffic, those specialist units where they were sort of leading a group of men and women to do these difficult jobs, which did incorporate a little bit of danger. I liked that little bit of danger. And of course, then you've got the other sergeants who do the more, they're into projects, they're more office-based, and through the rank structure it tends to be. And I'm not doing those down. We need those sergeants. We need them. If you're changing a whole structure within the police, you need really good people at dealing with that side of things. And I would have been atrocious. I would have been rubbish at it. So I thought, and that's one of the reasons why I thought, I'm going to have to prove to show I can do all of that, to prove that I can be a sergeant to what I want to do. And I don't know if I'm capable of even showing that I can do all that policy stuff and all that. So I had no intention to. And then I was I had a complaint against me. And you'll realize if you're in the police, once you've had several complaints, if you're out there, out and about, and you're not afraid of confrontation, you will pick up a few complaints. All right. If you deal with a disturbance, you need to be concise, assertive, robust when necessary, instead of agreeing with everyone, because that just doesn't work. It just falls to pieces. And you'll end up getting a few complaints. So I used to say complaints proves you're getting out and about. But then this one was just a standard traffic stop, to be honest. And it was a black guy. And I'll be honest with you, I did hesitate, because in Devon and Cornwall, majority of the minority groups we have is sort of Asian. We have big university, Exeter, Plymouth, but mainly Exeter side of things. You get quite a few different people from different backgrounds and nationalities. But they tend to be quite wealthy as well, So we don't have the inner city problems down here. I get that. And when I saw that person not wearing a seatbelt, I thought, well, if he was white, I would stop him immediately and give him a ticket, because I go to the fatal road traffic collisions, and I knew a warning was just probably not going to be enough. And then I thought, well, that's pretty racist, really, isn't it? Because I'm thinking, I'm hesitant. I'm thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't, because I don't want to complain. And I didn't know this chap from Adam. And I thought, well, that's not really good enough, is it? And so I made myself, I said, no, don't be so stupid. I'm going to act as if completely normal as I would normally. And I stopped him, and he was an absolute gentleman. And it was all until it came to getting his name for the ticket. He said, I'm not giving it to you. I went, oh, right. Well, you need to give me your name, because I need to give you the ticket for no seatbelt, and well, I'm not giving it to you. And I said, well, you're going to leave me no other opportunity but to arrest you I need it for service of a summons. Otherwise, I can't just say, oh, well, okay, never mind. Don't just wear it in future, you know? Because everyone would do that, funny enough. He said, oh, I'm not giving it to you. So I ended up arresting him. There was no fight. There was no struggle. It was absolutely fine. I was just a bit bewildered, really. I went to the station, booked him in, and he said, oh, my name's so-so, so-so. I thought, well, that's a waste of time, wasn't it? I took him back to his car. And then I got a complaint of some of the most vicious racist things that I was supposedly said. And the thing is, I wasn't worried because I knew there would be no video footage or recorded footage of this. I knew he didn't have a little recorder in his pocket because I knew it didn't happen. I knew I didn't say those things and that whole scenario didn't happen. But this person, I was angry. I was really angry now because this person was using his skin color to try to get himself out of a ticket, or if he just despised police, to give me one hell of a hard time. And I was determined that that wasn't going to happen. And I didn't have one sleepless night over that. And the investigation went on, and I got to a detective superintendent who was interviewing me from Professional Standards. And I said, can I just stop you there? I'm not going to, please don't confuse my attitude as arrogance. I am just angry, and I will answer your questions, and I'm going to get the hell out of here because this man has just tried to ruin my job, get thrown out of the job. Therefore, I can't pay my mortgage, stress on my family. I say it's disgusting. And it's the most racist sort of attitude that I can imagine that this guy has done against me. It's absolutely disgusting because he's used his race against me to get me into that trouble. I was absolutely fuming. And so I said, right, okay, fire away. And so I answered the question. And then at the end, the detective superintendent said, I think it was detective chief superintendent. He said, have you ever thought of going for promotion? Which I was a bit surprised about because I thought he was going to suspend me or something. And he said, no, I like the way you handled yourself under immense stress. You're looking at the situation by stepping back, looking at it, seeing what the evidence is, not letting that get to you, and then dealing in a very practical manner. And I think we need some people out there like that. Because he could tell that I didn't put up with bad behavior by cops. You know, I'd said that. I don't want bad cops because they make all the good ones look bad. So get the hell, I don't want criminals in uniform. Yeah. And this was a few years ago. And so I thought, I've got 3 weeks to apply to be in the interview, to go for the interview and start learning. And so I did, and I passed the interview. And then went to not passed the interview. I did the exam and passed the exam. First time, very pleased. Went for the interview with an outstanding recommend after being on traffic and acting sergeant duties, sort of on and off, and failed miserably. I wonder if anyone's gone to an outstanding recommend to an interview, promotion interview, and still failed. Because I naively thought it was all about the experience I'd done. So I left there and I did 3 weeks in youth affairs, which was worth more than 4 years on traffic. That's the ridiculous thing. But the key thing there was neighborhood and community, and traffic were the bad guys, you know. So I think that was it, really. So anyway, I eventually got through by playing the game, really, by learning what the issues were, you know, the key points, political issues, looking at the force, strategy and all that side of things. It was very much about getting the neighborhood on side and being with the neighborhood. And in my examples I gave, I said, well, if I was a sergeant at neighborhood in Brixham, and I say Brixham in Torbay, not Brixton in London, there's an extra T with that, then I would do this as a sergeant. I never mentioned being in the traffic department once because I knew they would say, oh, he can't stop being pigeonholed. He can't get out of the traffic. So that's where I got promoted. So I got promoted, and then, but then before I did some acting duties, some temporary duties in traffic, just before that interview. And I remember going, and the inspector said, "Oh, Harry's going to be temporary sergeant for the traffic department." And there were some old sea dog traffic officers. I mean, they were set in their ways, 1 ticket a day, and that was it, you know. And there's this whippersnapper come in, mid-20s, mid to late 20s, come in, and he's going to supervise them. Oh, bloody hell, they're like. And I felt terrible. And I remember saying to them, this probably helps with acting duties, especially on the specialist, say, look, I just consider myself your admin. I'm going to do your admin. I'm going to, where I think you need it, I'm going to back you up to the hilt and back the department up, because we can get misleading or the wrong criticism. It's unfair criticism. And individuals who get into a bit of problem, I will back you up all I can. I promise you that. But all I ask, and I consider myself not as your sergeant at this moment, but I'm here to do basically the admin that the section needs. But all I want in return is just don't make me look bad. All right? If you can make me look good, I'd appreciate that. With a cheeky grin on my face. And they went, ah, and I soon got them around, especially when I backed them up. I backed them up on something that they needed backing up on. You know, it was all getting very tick box. And I said, no, these people have gone to this. That is not on the tick box system. If you start criticizing them now, you are going to completely demotivate them. And they knew about this. So anyway, fast forward, got promoted. And I went down to Plymouth on response. And I remember walking through the station and somebody go, all right, Sarge, on my first day. And I went, oh yeah, that's weird. That's really weird. And here's a point, because new sergeants really struggle with the first name sergeant term. I mean, you could be Skip in other forces and stuff like that. In Devon Cornwall, it was Sarge. And they really struggled with it. And it's how to put it across if people are being too flippant with you. All right, Harry, all right. And he's been in 6 months. Yeah, it's not good. So didn't want that. It's also didn't want, excuse me, can everyone please call me Sergeant? I think I've earned it. You know, doesn't come across well. People think you're a bit of a dick. The problem with it is discipline comes with the rank, but you have to earn your respect. And if they're saying Sarge, they're saying Sarge, the stripes, not necessarily the person. What they talk about you as a person is how they respect you as a person. But discipline comes with the chevrons, all right? So the stripes. So I remember an incident there when I was in the parade room, and there's lots of very young PCs there, and it was quite busy, and from other sections. And one of my more, well, no, she'd only been in about 3 years or so, but, you know, it's quite experienced nowadays. And she came into this big, I was like, Harry, can I go home early? Because I ignored her for a bit, and I was just typing with my back. She said, Harry, I went, oh, I'm sorry, Sarah. I thought my sister had come in the room then. Hello, how are you? You know, and the point was made, really. And I said to her afterwards, the trouble is, if you call me Harry then, I will get every officer with 2 days in calling me Harry. And when I need to tell that officer to do something they don't necessarily agree with, or they can't be bothered to do, I will get an argument. And I can't, if it's that Sarge barrier, they won't want to argue with the sergeant rank, but they will argue with the very friendly, over-friendly Harry. And she totally got that. I said, look, if it's you and me, and if it, especially with it was our ARV section, the armed response section, I would say to them, look, if it's just us guys, and just call me Harry, all right? And if it's just one-to-one, please just call me Harry. I'm absolutely fine with that. But if it's down the corridor in a place with a load of other officers, just say Sarge, all right? Makes my life easier, much easier. Because I did get that. I got a probationer coming in, very young in service, and coming in like I was his best mate, you know? So, and they were good. And to be honest, the great majority, one-to-one, would say, would call me Sarge all the time. I mean, all of them did. And then when someone called me Harry, I was, yeah, no problem. I didn't pick up on it at all. It was fine, even from another section. But that section would then hear my lot call me Sarge, and they were like, oh, right, okay. Yeah, all right, Sarge, you know. And so the point was made that way. The problem is, what you do not want to do is send an email around like someone did in my job and say, in my force, and say, can it just be let known, I'm fully fledged sergeant, if I could be known as sergeant from now on. And that's can be sometimes the problem with being promoted in rank in the department. I went to Plymouth on response. It was the best thing I did, kicking doors in for 3 years, basically. And it got out of traffic, got back into traffic and ARV later on. And there's no guarantees of that. But this officer, they said, yeah, I'm a sergeant. So can you call me now? Can you call me sergeant now? And then he signed it off with his Christian name, which is a bit. And it didn't go down well. And quite rightly so. That's not how you handle it, because it was like, I'm the big I am. You can worship me now. That's the impression it gave, even if it wasn't the impression meant. So they really struggled with that. And they should have said, look, guys, between us, because you were talking. He was talking to some very senior traffic officers there who were being treated like children, you know, and that's the key thing I would say. Just ask them when it's amongst other people, young officers you don't know, just call me Sarge. Makes my life easier. That's the key. That's the key thing. Okay. And then luckily I got up to Exeter ARV and all that, and it was absolutely brilliant. But every section, don't try to say, oh, I want to get that. You know, there's an officer go. Do you know what? When a whole load of new ARV officers used to come through, the other sergeant said, oh, can we have so-and-so? Can we have so-and-so? Because they've heard they're good or whatever. And I never used to do that. And I used to get an inspector saying, well, Harry, who do you want? I said, I hear so-and-so is quite good. It'd be quite nice. But to be honest, not really bothered. Because I knew that to be able to get through the ARV course, they needed to be pretty good. All right. So the basis was good. Very rarely you'd get your odd strange character, really strange character come through. But you needed, say in a section of 6 officers, you needed your funny one, your slightly lazy one who needed a nudge now and then, but was an array of sunshine with good humor and whatever. You needed your person who was brilliant on the intelligence system. Your other guy who was amazing on the traffic law, but a little bit boring maybe, you know? It's that whole family where all the characters are so different makes up that whole section. And we used to joke that there was one guy, Dean, who was the perfect traffic sergeant, ARV sergeant. He's motivated. He's a sergeant now. He's really motivated. He would just bring in the work. All the men liked him. All the women liked him. Oh, he was Mr. Popular guy. And he was just put himself out to everyone. He worked hard, but he was so humble as well. And I always used to take the piss and say, if I could clone him, I'd clone him for the whole lot. And it's just totally untrue, because I needed my characters. I needed the variety. It would have been boring if everyone was like that. And I remember the whole section going through flows of like, oh no, the section's just perfect at the moment. Leave it alone. And then they would move because they'd go off to different departments and whatever, or get more specialist farms units or whatever. And I used to think, don't worry about it. Don't worry. We'll get new guys in and they will come through, and they inevitably would. You know, and so don't get too tied up in trying to get the perfect section. They will go through ebbs and flows, but it'll be fine. When I used to get these new guys on the section, and I said guys, I mean girls as well, all right? And I did have. I used to say to them, I used to bring them in for the office and say, right, congratulations, well done. You made it to the best section there was ever. And they'd often say, yeah, I know, well, I'll ask for this one. I was really asked for this one. It was great, you know. And I say, right, here's the rules, all right? I want you to work your backside off. And if you're not, I will tell you. I don't care what you're doing, but as long as you are busy all the time doing stuff, all right? And then, it's when you get into the shite, when things go wrong, when it's your turn for the world to collapse around you, I will be there backing you up from the hill. I will back you all the way. Unless you are dishonest, gross negligence, I mean, really just gross negligence, not giving a toss, or whether if you're malicious, all right, that nastiness, the stuff, everything else, that thing where you really mess up, but it wasn't intentional, I will back you all the way. And the first time as a sergeant, you can prove that, you will get everyone on side. All right. So it's almost, somebody crashed the car and it looked like they were going to get stuck on for due care. And it was absolutely distraught. It was absolutely distraught. And I pulled him in and I said, right. And I really gave him a dressing down saying, you do millions of miles in the years, in your career, the whole 4 stars, whatever. And most of that is at high speed. You are a great thief taker. These things are going to happen. It's not what happens. It's how you deal with it. Every single time. It's not what happens. It's how you deal with it. So now you've crashed the car and you did a U-turn in front of someone and they smashed into you and everyone's crying for blood. All right. It's how you deal with it. And it's dealing with that race complaint that I had is try not to let it get to you. Don't give them the satisfaction of that. Okay. Because you're a good person. You're a good worker. And they leave and I get comments like, good speech, Sarge, thanks. And needed that, thanks. And it's those complaints, even if somebody is suspended, is suspended. Look, this is how the system is completely biased, this system. All right. You're a good officer. All right. You messed up this time, but we all do. And I will. It's just your time. It's your time when everything's not singing, dancing around you. These things will happen in any career, but it's just your time. And I'll back them. And so if someone's getting criticism, the other thing is if they come up with the idea, never, ever, ever take the credit for their idea. And in fact, if you twist that, it will give you far more credit. Here's how. We all know those supervisors, those bosses who you say, Sarge, I've got a great idea, I think, and the guys are on to it for our training day or whatever. Can we do this, that, and the other? And we'll do an operation where we're targeting we'll get, I don't know, all the agencies in, and we'll do it in this area, and it will send a message to the unlicensed taxis or whatever like that. And I'll say, yeah, cracking, good idea. And I used to joke with them and say, do you know what? That's a brilliant idea I just had. You could use that with anything. Because they'd laugh because they know that there are supervisors who would do just that, who'd make it their idea. And they go to their bosses and they say, sir, my section is going to be doing this. I think it would be really good to show that. Oh, brilliant. Well done. But those bosses, they know that sort of person after a while. It doesn't pay off. Some of the bosses are exactly like that as well, mind you. But if you say, I say bosses generally in any career, yeah. If you say to your inspector or your boss, sir, Dave had a brilliant idea. Dave on my section had a great idea. He's going to be helping to bring this thing, right? So not only does Dave think you're amazing, because he will find out, right? It's my phone bubbling away. Not only will Dave think you're amazing, your boss will think you're amazing, because your boss will think, he didn't take the credit. He could have. Good on him. What a good leader. I can trust him because he's got, he's got integrity, so it really helps. Then you start getting a name for yourself. Get yourself a name if you're called Harry or something, because if you're called John, change your name straight away because you'll just blend in with the others. Harry, I always knew if I heard it down the corridor, it was either good or bad, but it was definitely about me. My age of Harry, anyway. Before that royal imposter came along and took it off and made it common. But anyway, that's another subject. The other thing is you've got to praise in public and criticize in private. All right. It's praise. Praise in public and what's the word? Punish. Yeah. Praise in public, punish in private. And really important to praise in front of other people. And it doesn't have to be, can I just say, it's just, John, good one the other day. Thanks, mate, for that. Brilliant job. Well done. Well done, you. Put yourself out, it was noticed, thank you. That side of things, the others hear that. It's very difficult because sometimes you haven't got a separate room. And sometimes if you have got a separate room, you say, John, can I have a word with you in the office? They're like, oh my God. And it makes this far more serious than it actually is. You just want to say, what was that thing? Is there a misunderstanding the other? That's, it might be just that. But of course you can't talk about those things. And so get them out in the car, talk to them in the car. When you're, just spend the shift with them. And I would at the end of the shift, I'd say, well, okay, you happy? That's your PDR done? Because we'd have covered everything in the PDR. And properly. But it was a day out on the shift in the car. And usually, Sunday morning, choose Sunday morning, Saturday earlies, Sunday earlies, when all the criminals in bed and there's, and you're doing the paperwork and you say, cool, should we just go out for a drive? And you just have a little chat. And you really get to know the person then by going out working with them. And finding that time as a supervisor is, if you're working a set of 4 shifts, do your emails day 1, possibly day 2, to get rid of that paperwork. And then the other 2 days you've got to play. I'm going out and playing. All right. And that's when you go, and I didn't do as much as I should have. Other people were better than me. There's a lot more sergeants better at me in certain aspects as well. But it's getting to know your section. And because my memory was so atrocious, I let out secrets now. I on my contacts page, I just put what their wife's name was, how many children. This sounds a bit stalkery now, but just knowing the details so that you knew, even, and freak them out if you say, oh, happy birthday today. And they're like, how do you know it's my birthday? But they also knew my memory was terrible, absolutely terrible, you know. So they was especially surprised when I remembered a birthday or something. But, you know, it's chastising those officers. It's when, you know, it's like the small child thing, you know, I hated it more than anything. I say, oh, mate, you really disappointed me on that one. Let me down on that one. And they're like, no, you know, you didn't need shouting. You got to use your own character with the way you manage people. And it's not in all the, it's not on all the training, sergeant training programs. It's not in any books. I would have, if you wrote mine down, you could have really got me sacked sometime. I'd come in and say, right, you bastards. What a mess up. What an absolute cock up. John, what have you played? John's really getting it today. What the hell did happen then? You know, but you can see it's a bit of a grin on my face. It's like, Jesus, you know, and it's like anything, it's like the Tom Cruise thing, but it isn't, because they see the grin on my face, and it's not meant like that, but it means I don't have to hark them off into a room. And it means that I can do it publicly. And the others are like, yeah, John, we bloody idiot, you know, so. Like, whoa, I didn't mean it, you know. And it's that sort of thing. The point is made. It probably doesn't tick all the boxes for some management system, but it brought you together as a bit of a family still, a section, you know. Everyone trusted each other. You aired your grievances to a certain point, but when it became a little bit more personal, more serious, that was, you know, it would not go to, I wouldn't let it go so far, you know, that was out of order. I'd even go to some people and say, just lay off something for a minute. Lay off so-and-so for a minute. All right. He's struggling a little bit. He's finding everything not funny at the moment. Just give him time. Yeah. And they'd respect that. They'd respect that when they hadn't necessarily noticed it. The other thing is, right, is how to actually confront things like that. When you think, and that's where the sergeant and the Harry comes in, is because when you do need to have a word with them, and it's, you need to remind them sometimes, it's force, person, and that's how it is. It's the force comes first, then the individual. Now people will be screaming at the TV like this, the screen like this. They'll be going, what? They'll be saying, you know, it's always the person first. Welfare, the force can wait. Welfare, you're struggling, your family's really ill, your child is sick or whatever. Go do it. Off you go. However, ultimately, the force is the public. And the force is when I have to say, you can't go home early, you've got to do this. Oh, I need to go home. It's got my family comes first. Sorry, you've got to stay behind. You've got to stay behind because this needs doing. And if it isn't done, there's a whole host of shite that's happening back there. You need to carry on. Oh, for God's sakes, you know, it'd be easy for me to say, oh, you just go home. You just go home. And then all this happening in the background was like, well, what could I do about it? You could have done something about it. Every now and then, it's like those days you get paid for, I say, in the management one, in the dealing with paperwork and whatever. Every now and then you have a bad day. And that's the day you get paid for. Those are the days you get paid. When you're ranting around the countryside and you manage not to get a load of paperwork, and you've actually cleared your paperwork and you've had a right fun with this, and you've had a bit of a bundle, you've got some really bad guys in, no one's hurt, you do those for free because Joe Public would pay money to do that. Yeah. And you do those days for free. So sometimes it's all a bit shite. When it's really welfare, the only time I went nose to nose with an inspector once was an inspector who was he had his little niche of Exeter City. It was the nighttime economy when we were all in Blueprint, where everyone was together. You had response, traffic, and LV, and that was down to Theresa May. Thank you very much, when she destroyed the police service. And we've only started to try to bring some numbers back now because they realize, oh yeah, it messed up. We should have listened to them. But we're going to have such a lack of experience now. This is the problem. This is the problem. There's no wise old dogs up there. Very few. So, but I said, look, and he screamed at my ARVs because he didn't know they'd been up at a double fatal up in North Devon. It's, where have you been? The response officer's here. You've been gallivanting around in your big posh car. And I said, no, he's been to double fatal. Oh, right. Oh, okay. Can he go home half an hour early? That's all he needs, half an hour early, because he's had a really stressful shift. He needs to be up early the next morning because of this going on. He says, no, I want everyone to stay on here on time. Everyone stay. Well, that was the one and only time I fell out with him, the inspector. But he was an arse anyway. He was an arse. Everyone knew that. So you pick your arse. You pick the ones you fall out with, don't you? And I said, right, well, stick me on because he's going home. And he went home. And funny enough, I wasn't stuck home. Stuck on. So that's very rare. You shouldn't need to do that. If I'm thinking the boss is on a real long angle here, it's causing massive stress to the section. Right, from now on, we're going to do this every time. They're like, whoa, we've tried this. And I would say to the guys, look, do it for a fortnight. And then the fuss usually they're onto something else. The fuss calms down, all right? Just do it for a fortnight. And they do it for a fortnight. Yeah, the wheel comes round. Oh. I lost you for a minute. The wheel comes round and they come out with a new idea that isn't so new, and we're going to record all of this from now on in great detail, and then we're going to do this, and it's some inspector's project, and we'll do it, but then the inspector's been dragged onto another project, and this just floats away. Don't get me wrong, if it needs to be done, it will be done. It's not so we can all go around doing nothing, because you will lose all the respect from your resources straight away if you do that. You know what works because you do it practically. But you see, some academic or statistician comes in with something that will mean that this will work. And we all know it won't, because he's completely ignored all the variables. I mean, and he's got no knowledge or practical experience, which if taken together, that would help. But it's just not going to work. So, okay, we'll play the game, fortnight, and then let's not do it for a bit and see what happens. Nothing happens because they're onto something else. All right. That's the way it is. But when it means, I remember saying to my section, saying, look, guys, at some point, because they're saying, oh, they're getting us to do this, and it's not frontline, farm strategy will be weakened. I said, well, no, it won't, because you can dump it and leave it and go to that farms incident. I said, we just got to dig deep at the moment. Yes, in an ideal world, we wouldn't need to do this, but there's no resources. Then we need to offer a little bit more. And it's like, well, we're ARVs. At some point, there's very few people who said that. And I would say, well, the chief constable would like to know what the effing hell he's getting for his money, because he's paying you a wage every year to come and do this. And that's all he wants to know, what he's getting for his money. That's why we're doing this and whatever, And again, very few times, but you keep that amongst your section. You'd have that section meeting where you had your disputes, but you need to talk them through. Don't ignore them. It's not always a comfortable ride. These are all the bits I would say to tackle. If I found, for example, as well, another way is how to deal with those instances without saying, I need to have a chat with you, or it's slightly awkward. So it's easier just to ignore it as a supervisor. Just ignore it. Whoa, everyone can feel it. Oh, should I leave it? No, I need it. For example, I'm in the parade room. Someone just comes in, they're hungry, they're just getting a meal break. Can you go to a broken down vehicle on the dual carriageway in this dangerous position? Like, oh, for God's sakes, we're just going to... And you can see the tethers, they've lost it a little bit, And the crewmate's going, come on, let's go. And oh, Jesus, all right. Yeah, all right, we'll go. And you tell they've lost it. And you just let them have their little rant. Let them get it out. It's in private. It's not in public. It's not in front of other bosses and things. Let them have that little rant. But then when I went out, and then a minute later, and they're chatting to a third person about something, and I'm going, oh, have you been stood down? Knowing full well they haven't been stood down. Oh, no, Sarge. Yeah, no, we're going. And all I said was, so if that was your mum or your sister in that car, would you be here now? Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Sarge. Yeah, quick. We're on our way, and they'd be gone. The point was made. All right. I didn't need to rant and rave at them. I didn't need to ignore the situation because I thought, well, they're really angry. It's frustrating. The media hate us. The public hate us. You know, just, you know, and coming to that, going on to that other point is when that section of feeling a bit low, you just got to say, guys, this is just self-preservation here. All right. I will support your backside. We'll all look after each other, you know, where it's needed. Don't let the buggers get you down. They don't know what's going on. So we'll look after each other and each other's backs. And we're going to help those people who deserve it, who need it. And that might be just a domestic again. They need us for that moment. We will go there and we'll give them our best service. All right. It may be the little old lady who's suffering out from Alzheimer's. It's the child who's missing person from a child home or whatever, who's a pain in the ass, but they're pain in the ass because they're a kid and they've been pushed from pillar to post. So you can see they get our best service every single time. And the idiot who's shouting at us, saying that we're all the same, we're all racist pigs and all this sort of thing, just nick them for anything you can. If they're being public ordered, just nick them. Don't put up with them. I did not join this job to be insulted and abused, and I'm not going to start now. That's what I tell my section. And if people start doing that to you, you deal with it. All right? That's the way I managed. Don't let the buggers get you down. So that's it, really. I think that is pretty much the more awkward bits, how to deal with it, and how to make yourself, how to get through those trouble bits about being called by your first name, your sergeant. I tell you now, if you back up your section when it might initially look uncomfortable for you to do so, instead of to join the clan of inspectors or whatever, to say, yeah, I'll sort them out. Don't worry. Yeah, it's terrible. You know, if they need backing up, you back them up. And they will love you for it because they will trust you and they'll think we've got a keeper here. And I remember somebody saying that, somebody other saying, "Oh yeah, it's yeah, Sarge, why are you joking about something?" So, "Well, do you want to join our side section, Sarge?" And I think they were trouble with their sergeant, which I would never comment on, of course, with the PCs. And one of my guys said, "No, he's staying. We're keeping him. You're not having him." And it was, that was good. You know, you're doing all right if that's what they say. That's it. So please subscribe, like the video if you found it useful at all. It can help you with policing or in any other management whatsoever. But please subscribe now. I need it. And is it that side? I don't know. And a little plug for my book, Farms and Fatals. My God, that's done well this year. A self-publisher, sold over 8,000 copies now with that one, so I'm well happy with that. Audio, ebook, paperback, and it will tell you a lot more of and the best incidences, the worst incidences, when I've nearly shot people, and all the bits that will help you get through. I get a lot of new recruits and a lot of retired guys saying, "Do you know what? It reminded me of so much." And a lot of new recruits saying, "Oh, thank you. That's really given me a good basis to get that book and have a read." But thank you and have a wonderful time. Thank you very much. See you next time.